Welcome back to the channel, where we break down the most powerful treasures, inheritances, techniques, and secrets in Swallowed Star. Today, we're talking about one of the most terrifying inheritances Luo Feng ever obtained. And the craziest part, Luo Feng wasn't simply given this inheritance. He had to compete against some of the strongest beings in the entire universe, ocean. The legendary Duan Dong River inheritance. This wasn't simply a powerful technique. It was an ancient legacy containing knowledge accumulated across countless generations, including some of the most terrifying techniques and secrets left behind by the ancient Wu kingdom, survived deadly trials, outperformed countless geniuses, and proved that he was worthy of becoming the next Duan Dong River. So how did Luo Feng obtain this inheritance? Who exactly was Duan Dong River Wu? What enemies stood in his way? And what did Luo Feng actually gain after becoming the 193rd heir? Let's break it all down. First, what is the Duan Dong River Wu inheritance? The Duan Dong River inheritance is an ancient lineage of cultivation and combat knowledge. It was preserved inside the Boat of Mausoleum, where generations of Duan Dong River heirs maintained and expanded the inheritance. And this inheritance was absolutely enormous. Inside the inheritance space were countless memory stones containing techniques, combat knowledge, weapon refining methods, mechanical techniques, cultivation methods, and other secrets. There were even hundreds of millions of memory stones containing information accumulated by the ancient lineage. And among all of this knowledge were the three legendary core inheritances: Duan Mi, Donghua, and Undying River. These weren't ordinary secret techniques. They represented some of the highest level knowledge inherited by the Duan Dong River lineage. Secondly, who was Duan Dong River Wu? Now this is where things become interesting. Duan Dong River isn't simply the name of one person. It is actually a title passed down through generations. Every successful inheritor becomes the next Duan Dong River. The third generation patriarch was known as Zhu Yi Saint King, a god king. The 192nd heir was Zunheng Wu, also known as Duan Dong River Wu. And after passing the inheritance trials, Luo Feng became the 193rd Duan Dong River. So, Luo Feng wasn't merely receiving someone's personal treasure, he was taking over an ancient lineage that had existed for generations. And with that title came responsibility. The inheritance could not simply be handed to anyone. The core inheritance was protected by extremely strict restrictions. Anyone who tried to pass the core inheritance to an outsider would face deadly consequences. Thirdly, why was the inheritance so terrifying? Imagine having access to the accumulated knowledge of an ancient civilization, not for one generation, not for 10 generations, but for countless generations of powerful experts. That's essentially what Luo Feng obtained. The inheritance contained 820 basic inheritance paths, covering different fields such as close combat, long-range combat, weapon refinement, mechanical techniques, and more. And Luo Feng's talent was so exceptional that during the selection process, he gained access to an enormous amount of this knowledge. But the truly terrifying part was the core inheritance. Three legendary inheritances stood above everything else. Duan Mi focused on amplifications, Donghua focused on escape, and Undying River focused on preserving life. Together, they represented an incredibly powerful foundation for a great being seeking to reach higher realms. Fourthly, how did Luo Feng obtain the inheritance? This is where Luo Feng's journey becomes crazy. When the Duan Dong River inheritance appeared, powerful beings from different forces in the universe ocean immediately became interested and hoped on it. The Purple Moon Holy Land wanted it. The East Emperor Holy Land wanted it. The various reincarnation era forces wanted it. And Luo Feng was competing against them. But the inheritance had a brutal selection system. Inside the inheritance space were 820 entrances, each representing a different basic inheritances. Candidates had to demonstrate their understandings and abilities. The better they performed, the higher they ranked. And Luo Feng didn't just survive, he stood out. His comprehension was extraordinary, and he advanced through the selection process faster than most of his competitors. Eventually, the competition became a battle between the strongest candidates, and Luo Feng's greatest advantage wasn't simply his strength, it was his ability to learn. Fifth, the terrifying trials. The inheritance wasn't designed to reward someone who was merely powerful. It wanted someone capable of becoming a true successor. The candidates faced multiple brutal challenges. One of the first major dangers was Coelho. This terrifying existence acted as a deadly test for the candidates. Surviving wasn't enough. They also had to demonstrate extraordinary comprehension. Then came the legendary Rhinoceros Emperor game. This was not a normal game. It tested the candidate's ability to understand extremely profound mysteries. Luo Feng's comprehension was pushed to an incredible level. He eventually decoded 3,911 stages. That number alone shows just how monstrous his comprehension was. And even after surviving these challenges, there was still another test. The candidates had to create their own technique based on the knowledge they had received. In other words, the inheritance wasn't asking, "Can you memorize someone else's technique?" It was asking, "Can you use what you've learned to create something of your own?" That is what separated the true successor from everyone else. Sixth, the enemies Luo Feng faced. Luo Feng wasn't doing all of this alone. There were powerful competitors everywhere. One of the major competitors was Diabuk Master. There was also Venerable Blue Blood, who performed extremely well during the selection. And behind the competition were entire factions. The Purple Moon Holy Land, the East Emperor Holy Land, the First Reincarnation Era, the Second Reincarnation Era, and the Third Reincarnation Era. Everyone understood what this inheritance meant. If someone obtained it, their entire faction could potentially gain access to knowledge from an ancient civilization. So the inheritance became a battlefield. But there was one enormous problem. Only one person could become the successor. And when the final inheritor was selected, the other candidates inside the inheritance space were eliminated through a soul attack. Their bodies could remain intact, but their souls were destroyed. That tells you just how ruthless the inheritance system was. There was no participation trophy. There was only one successor. Seventh, the Wu Kingdom connection. Now let's talk about the Wu Kingdom. This is one of the most important parts of the story. The Duan Dong River inheritance is connected to the ancient Wu Kingdom, a powerful civilization from the continent of origin. The knowledge preserved within the Duan Dong River lineage included some of the lost knowledge of the Wu Kingdom and the three core inheritances: Duan Mi, Donghua, and Undying River. These were the most important pieces of this ancient legacy. That's why the inheritance was so valuable. Luo Feng wasn't simply obtaining the techniques of one powerful individual. He was gaining access to knowledge connected to an ancient civilization whose technology and cultivation achievements were far beyond the current universe ocean. 8. What did Luo Feng actually gain? After Luo Feng became the 193rd Duan Dong River, his gains became ridiculous. First, he obtained the three core inheritances: Duan, Mi, Donghua, and Undying River. Then there were the thousands of core memory stones, and beyond those, there were hundreds of millions of other memory stones containing an enormous amount of knowledge. The inheritance space also contained specialized areas for combat training, secret technique, creation, weapon cultivation, meditation, and more. There was even a treasure space containing 322 embryo treasures, from which the inheritor could choose one. And perhaps one of the greatest benefits was the inheritance space itself. It provided an incredible environment for cultivation and training. Luo Feng could use accelerated time to study and improve himself at an unbelievable rate. 9th, the most important techniques. Now let's talk about the three techniques that matter the most. First, Duan Mi. This is an extremely powerful amplification technique. It consists of 9 volumes, with the early volumes accessible before reaching the Void True God realm. As Luo Feng continued growing stronger, he could unlock deeper portions of the technique. Second, Donghua. This is an extremely powerful escape technique. Its purpose isn't simply to make Luo Feng move faster. It allows the user to transform into a magnificent stream of light and traverse layers of space in a battle against an opponent who is stronger than you. Sometimes the strongest attack isn't attacking, it's being able to escape alive. And finally, Undying River. This represents the inheritance's terrifying knowledge related to preserving life. Because in the world of Swallowed Star, having overwhelming offensive power is only half the battle. If you cannot survive, you cannot reach the peak. And this is why the Duan Dong River inheritance was such a massive turning point. How the inheritance changed Luo Feng. Before this inheritance, Luo Feng was already an extraordinary genius. But afterward, he had something that very few beings in the universe ocean possessed. He had access to an ancient civilization's accumulated knowledge. He had powerful cultivation resources. He had the three core inheritances. He had an enormous library of techniques. He had a specialized environment where he could continuously train, and most importantly, he had the opportunity to turn all of that knowledge into his own power. Luo Feng eventually spent an enormous amount of time training within the inheritance space, fighting simulated opponents from previous generations, and constantly improving his techniques and willpower. The inheritance didn't simply make Luo Feng stronger, it gave him the foundation to continue becoming stronger. And that difference is enormous. So when you hear the words, Duan Dong River inheritance, don't think of it as just another treasure. It was an ancient legacy, a legacy built through countless generations. A legacy connected to the terrifying Wu Kingdom. a legacy that attracted the strongest forces in the universe, ocean, and a legacy that killed countless candidates who weren't worthy. Yet after surviving the trials, after defeating his competitors, after proving his comprehension, Luo Feng became the 193rd Duan Dong River. And from that moment, his journey toward the true peak entered another level entirely, because Luo Feng didn't just inherit the power of the past, he inherited the knowledge needed to surpass it. And that is the legendary Duan Dong River inheritance. Luo Feng didn't simply gain a powerful treasure. He inherited the accumulated knowledge, techniques, resources, and treasures of an ancient and incredibly powerful lineage, from Duan Mi, which gave him terrifying amplification power, to Donghua, which gave him an incredible way to escape danger, an undying river, which strengthened his ability to preserve his life. The inheritance completely changed Luo Feng's path and gave him the foundation to continue reaching higher levels of power. But this is only one part of Luo Feng's journey. If you enjoyed this explanation, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more Swallowed Star lore, treasures, inheritances, and Luo Feng's journey to the peak. And comment below what you want me to explain next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.